Welcome back to the Teachers AI Cafe. I'm Kane, your host. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Normally I have quite a structured sort of response, a different particular topic. But I've been getting a lot of questions lately from teachers still brand new to AI, and there's lots of us out there. So when you think about AI and how popular it's become in the last 2.5 years, that is still, the number of teachers using it is still a tiny minority. And many people are doing the basics, and a lot of people still don't understand it or where it comes from. So what I actually did today, I actually used AI to generate a whole series of questions. So I asked AI to say, if you're a brand new teacher to AI, what sort of things would you want to know? So I built the episode around that. I've narrowed it down to 10 questions, which I often get, and I'm just going to basically work my way through them. But before we actually get into the questions, I just want to remind you to get online, give the podcast a rating, and most importantly, share it with your colleagues. The more people you share it with, the more change we can have within the educational system. So looking forward to you passing it on to your colleagues, particularly if they're brand new, playing this episode, because it'll cover a lot of different points. So question one is, what is AI? How's it different from just Googling something? Google retrieves information. They go out onto the internet, they put their query in, and it gives information back that's been created and stored online that hopefully answers their question and then ranks them. And that has really changed over time. It used to be very just people rank. Now people pay for their links or answers to be at the top of the search. So it's not as clean as it used to be. The difference is AI can actually generate a response. It can summarize information and personalize it for the question that we're getting. The advantage of AI, you can really adapt your responses to the context that you actually give it. So instead of just putting general query in there, if we provide more detail to AI, it'll get a more targeted, responsive answer to that. And it's just not a single question. When we look at AI, it's actually an interactive process. We have follow-up questions to improve the quality of the response that we're getting it. You can't do that in Google. You can work on different search terms, but you can't personalize it and refine it as you go to the same way that AI works. It's less of a search tool, it's more of a thinking type assistant. So while we'll go out into its data sets and even you can get it to look online, it's more thinking about, okay, this is the question that's been given to us. This is the answers I think are appropriate for the person. That's what it displays. The other big thing it does is AI can hallucinate. Though with every new version, that's becoming less and less common, but it certainly still exists. So Googling still has that issue of not getting the right information the way it's ranked and depending on what the query goes in there. That's why it's important when you're using AI is you've got to have your own professional knowledge to assess the question and then assess what the output is to see whether it's accurate or not. So it's not really good if you're doing academic work. If you've done no research or no background knowledge whatsoever, you don't know whether the information is true or not because it might be an hallucination. Some websites doing the Darwin Awards for AI, and there was a great one with IKEA. They got onto the AI bot, the customer, and asked to return good. And the AI bot went through the entire process, organised a pickup time, which is on the Friday. They pick up, then obviously send out the replacement item from IKEA for the person, all booked in, confirmed confirmation numbers. The person then waited on Friday. No delivery truck turned up whatsoever. They contacted a person at IKEA and the person said no, the AI system they're using totally hallucinated the entire thing. Essentially, there was no time within the delivery system or organisation they had to deliver it that day, so it just made it up and to keep the customer happy. So it's a new website, AI Darwin Awards, where AI goes completely wrong. I think it'll be very popular in the future. Second question is, how can I use AI in my subject area without it taking over my teaching? And obviously this is a big fear or what you hear in the media that teachers aren't going to be needed in the future. I will say teaching will change, but there's definitely always a role for humans because we're social creatures. So what can they do? They can use AI as a brainstorming partner for lesson ideas, but not as a replacement, once again, based on your knowledge. It generates multiple examples, maths problems, essay questions, different ways of wording the same information very, very quickly for you. You can adapt material for different ability levels to differentiate your learning. You use it to create retrieval practices, quizzes and flashcards. You let students use AI for drafting and feedback, but obviously you want to keep the final version theirs. And I'm a strong believer in that, and I obviously show my own children how to use AI in their studies because it is the tool and they need to develop those skills on how to use AI when they move out of school into either further education or into the workforce. As it's been noted lately, AI will not take your job, but if you do not adapt and learn to use AI, your job is in danger. So looking at all those, it's not taking over the classroom, it's amplifying and excelling what you already do and already know. Don't be afraid of AI. Next question, number 3. What are some safe, practical first steps for me to try in the classroom? And I recommend every teacher just go on and start playing with it and see what you get. A good way to start would be create a marking rubric or see how to write some parent letters, things that take you a lot of time. Try testing on some low-stakes tasks involving your students. So start small, incremental gains, build your confidence. Work on using clear prompts and giving a role going back to the Rising model. So you would act as a history teacher, explain to a Year 7 class. Act as a science teacher with a Year 10 class, then give you context in your subject. Share one AI output with your class and go through it together. Actually have that conversation and engage your students into it because they are using it. And once again, explore all the free versions to learn the basics before you think about committing and paying for it. So you've got all the standard things like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, which are obviously you've got free versions. Just use those. Or you can go for the wrapper sites, but if you do that, you're not really developing that knowledge and skills, how it works underneath. If you go to somewhere straight away like Magic School, for example, because it does a lot of the prompts and everything for you automatically underneath. Number 4, will AI make my job easier or just give me more to do? This is actually, probably the $1 million question. So we will become more efficient using AI. Now the question is, will our admin and our executive give us more work to do? At least in my local area in Australia, they're looking at using AI to lighten the load of teachers. Honestly, I think it'd be easier if they just trained and retained more teachers, more staff, and lessen the load of the teaching load so we have more prep time. Everyone goes to what we call 0.8. One less class would make a big difference for all our teachers. So, AI, is it going to make it easier or more to do? Well, if it's used well, it will save you time on admin. Things like emails, reports, lesson outlines, all those nuts and bolts things that often take a lot of time. It can do very quickly, give you a very good draft so you then to modify to how you want it. It'll cut down things like prep time, as I said, generating drafts when you're refining. And that's where most people see their initial big time savings in their teaching practice. It can reduce your mental load, so we can do cognitive offloading I've spoken about previously, where you get stuck for ideas, you can put what you got in there and ask it to give you another 5 or 10 ideas, and then you can pick out the ones you want to work with. In terms of risk, I would, like I said, pick up one tool and just work with it small. If you go chasing every new tool, it's just going to add stress to you. I mean, AI is moving quickly. People are always adding new tools on there. Some they've customized themselves. Also tools that are being released, like Gemini released Nano Banana the other day. Looks like lots of fun. But like I said, there's always tools coming out, but you can't keep up with everything. If you try to, you will overwhelm yourself. Pick something, develop the skills on that, build on top of that, and then keep improving. And as you get more confident, then look at different tools and ways you can actually use it. And if you do those small things first, you'll notice a big payoff straight away as well. And as you get better at it, you can build those prompts, even a prompt library, into your routine to save you time and become more efficient the longer you're actually involved with AI. So definitely, it should be making your job easier if you're using right, but that doesn't mean you take on extra workload. Get the balance right, reduce the amount of work that you're doing, get that running really smoothly, and then look at how you can expand and change things with your additional time. Whether it's just more time with family, which I recommend, or you want to do more around your school. Number 5, how do I stop my students from just getting AI to do their assignments for them? That is a massive thing. And I'll say your students are using it. And personally, we should be showing them how to use it and giving them training. So I've been working in different schools lately, and I've been talking to the students whether they've been shown how to use AI. And they're allowed to use AI in their classroom, but at the time chatting to them, they've been given no formal training of how to use it effectively. And I think that's really a disservice for teachers who know how to use AI aren't doing that with their students. But back to the main core issue, cheating. So simply, there's lots of AI checkers out there. They don't work. They're very inefficient and they're more likely to give a false positive than actually catch someone who has been cheating. I mean, people look like the M dashes and things like that, but that's a normal part of writing. And then you can write something with AI and you can put Grammarly or Rewordify and it'll actually rewrite it for you anyway and take out those tell signs that may be in the original AI. But then also with version 5 out, it's a lot more normal language, natural language than previously. You really just got to know essentially how your students write. Get to know your students. For your students, they can use it to scaffold simplified explanations that need it. So they can put in a question, so explain this question to me in another way. If the teacher isn't available, they do that for them. It can help stretch your more advanced learners with more challenging questions. You can get them to set themselves through AI, or you can provide that for them. It can actually help them with their writing by giving feedback or taking their drafts and showing them what a good example that is. Particularly post-assessment, where they might put, what's wrong with this? You give them some feedback. You can actually then use AI to give more in-depth feedback for them. In terms of equity, that depends on the teacher's practice. Obviously, I think all students should be able to use it. Students in different socioeconomic backgrounds will have different advantages. You find students with higher socioeconomic backgrounds will have more advantage. They've essentially got the resources, particularly at home, and more time to play around with it. So it's important that we involve all our students and provide that opportunity for them to use AI within a school context. And the core of it is really, you just got to know your students. You're the most crucial person within the classroom who controls what happens, what occurs within it. When a student does use AI to cheat, as you believe, have that conversation with them. Give them a chance to redo it. But then ask them, what did they learn about the process? Get them to reflect. And then, if they use AI in the future, acknowledge it, reference it, but not do their entire task with it. Because when they go out into the workforce, they will be using AI. 7. What about student privacy and safety when you're using AI? So depending on the platform, you can actually remove your prompts and content out of the data sets for part of their learning sets. You can remove those out with different options within there. But some real basics is don't put your student names in there, identifying information in AI tools. You can upload, say, essays or questions. You can even do report comments, but you just make them with no names in them. Stick to the approved platforms within your school's allowed. So if you're a Google school, they're moving a lot with the Google platform, and they'll have their own protections. Same with the Microsoft platforms that my school uses. They're actually protected within their own ecosystem. So use the approved platforms, and they'll have data protection in there. Free versions of things, particularly all the rapid sites, will definitely be using your data for training. Be cautious. If you do get students to upload that or use it yourself for information, get them to use a generic email, not their school email. Create a single email, for example, the student AI at such and such login, and get them all to log in with that same account. Therefore, they're not collecting data from individual people. As I said, approved platforms or paid, things like education licenses will tend to have stronger safeguards than meeting the government requirements. And I guess always frame AI as a support. It's not replacing your existing learning systems. It's something to amplify what you're actually doing. Or the big one, will AI replace teachers one day? No, they won't. Now, teachers' roles change, and I personally think that's a good thing. I think a lot of the online learning tools and things that got developed during COVID, a lot of people have just moved on and stopped using, gone back to traditional teaching. I think we lost a big opportunity there. I think AI will not be able to have that. I think we'll see this initial creep and resources, tools come into the system and actually remain there. What form they take, I don't know. You've got the Alpha School that's in Texas saying fantastic results, but there's a lot of question marks in terms of who their cohort is, their backgrounds, and why they're getting those particular results. But back to the nuts and bolts of, will teachers get replaced by AI? Well, AI lacks empathy. They don't build relationships and the ability to manage classrooms. As we all know, students learn best from teachers they like. It can support their learning, and like some new systems now can actually identify gaps and help them develop, but it can't devise or develop their personal growth that goes along with teaching. And some of the best comments I ever get was, in your year 12s or your seniors are leaving, was the feedback you get, you were more than just a teacher to me, because those conversations you had around learning is often that development things and the advice indirectly or feedback they get about why they're making those decisions and they're developing has more lasting impact than teaching them some facts in the classroom. Because teaching really is about care and connection as much as it is the content. We teach them, but at the same time we're trying to develop them as good human beings to go out into the community. AI can be really badly designed. It can be really repetitive and lock kids into a certain way of thinking or working. We have a learning platform here in Australia that people use for teaching programming. I don't use it, but I know a lot of schools do because it's free. When they're doing their coding, it locks into one answer only. So it doesn't develop that creativity and freedom that often comes with coding, which is a very creative sort of tool, but they must do it this way. And a lot of my students would get really frustrated because they build a solution that wouldn't work because it didn't meet the correct response that should have been on the online system. It's about developing those relationships and that growth over their journey with us. Number 9, do I need to pay for ChatGPT or other AI tools, or the free version enough? Free version is absolutely fantastic. The only difference is if you start to use a lot, you'll start to run out of tokens and you won't be able to do as much per day. You'll have to wait a period of time, whether it's hours or a day, to keep working on the project you're doing. So paid versions will often give you access to better models, better memory, and more prompts that actually go into. But I hit prompts when I'm using AI, particularly if I'm doing a lot of repetitive. It'll tell me you've done too many prompts today, you need to wait 2 hours before I can actually do those sort of prompts again. So yes, everything has its limits because it's all processing power. Free models can be slower and less accurate because they're running with an older model on some platforms. You look at ChatGPT, you get the newest model, but you get it for a limited time. Now the question is how much you'll actually use it. So if it's very casual, I wouldn't pay for it. But if you're using it every day on a daily basis, the investment is worth it. I pay $35 Australian per month, and I get lots of value out of that $35 over a month's period. And what you might find soon is schools, I know some schools do this for some colleagues, they'll actually pay for your license. So it's something you're using all the time. It's encouraged by your particular school or district. Definitely approach your executive and look, can you pay for this? I'm using it as part of my role, like they would for any other resource. 10, where can I see examples of teachers already using AI well? So there's a lot online. YouTube is the place to do it. Podcasts like this one, in terms of the way you can use AI. YouTube is good because it's nice and visual, but it's sort of hit and miss. I suggest asking teachers within your school who is actually using AI and what are they actually using it for, and then just getting together. At my school, I run a once a week AI drop-in session. Anyone can just come along. So often I'll have the same teachers all the time. But hopefully from that is they'll learn from me. And when they go back to the department, they'll then talk about it and show the other teachers. So you got that osmosis of knowledge spreading across the school. So having a drop-in session, just flick an email out on recess on Thursdays. I'll be in such and such classroom, swap by and let's talk about AI and see what we can learn. Really easy. There are conferences and PD sessions coming up, but I've noticed the people in the early days are charging a lot of money, at least here in Australia. And when I looked at the programs, I don't think it's worth it. But like I said, make that your own judgment on that. I know in the US, there's some organisations now looking at getting formal training for teachers. So do inquire about that. When you go online, look for specific examples around your subject area. So it's history, maths, language, as the case may be. Put those specific searches into Google, ironically, or even AI search that will actually go find those resources online. So that's relate more to your learning area. Case studies can be time-saving in marking and differentiation. But like I said, there's not too many case studies around at the moment because it's fairly new. So they're very hard to find. And like I said, many teachers like to share their prompts openly on different platforms. There's a few on Facebook I'm a member of. But sharing with your peers is honestly the fastest way to learn and get in, as well as maybe taking some micro or short courses. Maybe I'll set one up at some point. So I hope you found today useful. Like I said, 10 questions that a starter teacher may come up with. And hopefully these are the sort of things I often have that repeating conversation with people who come into my drop-in sessions who haven't used AI before. And these are the sort of questions they will ask because they're obvious if you're at a starting point. And obviously over time as they learn more, the questions become more complex and often more specific because they're learning about what they actually need to do. So thank you for joining me today. Share it with your fellow colleagues at school. Send them a copy of the podcast saying, hey, listen to this. I found it really useful. That's what I'd like. Get on, write a nice review if you can. Give it a nice ranking. 5 out of 5 is a good way to do it. Until then, keep up the good work in your classroom. Thank you.